Will Nobles. We're here with Will Nobles. This is Carl Luke. Okay, Will Nobles. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Will.
Carl, thank you for having me, sir.
Absolutely, outstanding. Would you like to get started with something big about yourself you'd like to express right at the top here?
I think the biggest thing is, going from a farm boy to the executive office and how that changes you in your life is huge. See, I went from being a 5 generations blue collar workers and farmer in Eastern North Carolina. At 12, I was working in tobacco fields. At 18, I was driving a 100-ton bulldozer in a mine. And I got so tired of hearing the beep, beep, beep backing up. I went to my dad and said, Dad, I've got to leave. I've got to leave this job. I'm going to go to college. And he thought I was crazy. He's like, son, not too many people. I was making about $20 an hour. He said, not too many people make $17.42 an hour. And I think that's what I was making. And thank God I didn't listen to him, because I would still be making maybe a little bit more than that, still running that bulldozer, probably a lot more stressed than I am today, and not wearing a blue suit. And then this is my signature blue suit here. So that's sort of where I came from and how I grew up, and it's amazing where you take that your dad and influence that a father or a parent figure can have over you. If I actually listen, not discouraging people not to listen to your parents, but if I had listened to my father that day, I would be where I'm at. And I'm very happy where I'm at. And it's crazy. When I left North Carolina, I moved to Georgia, and I was working, and at 25, I was a VP of technology at a mortgage company. So we had about 900 employees, and I was running the whole IT department and everything. Well, my mom, and I'm sitting there one Friday afternoon, and I'm looking, email pops up, it's from my mom, and I look, and she said, and it said, next time you're home. And I was like, what is she talking about? So I click on it, and it says, next time you're home, I have something to tell you. Well, only a mom can actually do something like that to you. So of course I picked up the phone and I said, Mom, what are you talking about next time you're home? Now, granted, being from Eastern North Carolina and living in Atlanta, Georgia, I was 8 hours apart. And so I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, next time you're home, I got something really important to tell you. I'm like, why are you going to do that 8 hours apart? And I said, I'm not sure when I'm coming home next. And I kept aggravating. Well, she ends up telling me that my father was not my biological father. Now, at 25 years old, it's a major shock. Now, I look back now, and at 25, I'm glad she told me at 25 and not 12, because I probably would have rebelled if I did that. And it made me think, so the same father that said I shouldn't leave a hardworking job, which I learned a lot from, making $20 an hour, but my biological father was a business owner, was a successful business owner, and I had the genes that he had. And so even though I didn't grow up with a father, a biological father, I grew up with a very good man. But again, his ideas was his education level and how he grew up versus my drive was totally different at that time. So your story is your biggest thing that you can take with yourself, and never be ashamed of your story, no matter where that story background comes from. Use that, because I think you can take that story and build on yourself and help others build to be very successful.
So your biological father, do you feel you align with him, and did you develop a relationship with him?
Unfortunately, no. He passed away of cancer about 7 years ago now. So several years after I found out, no, never was able to build a relationship. He was, it's a long story, but he was still married to the same lady that he was married to when I came around, let's say that. And of course, my mother was still married to my, what I called father. And so it made it very, very complicated, needless to say. And so, but the nice thing about it is I got 2 sisters out of it. And so I already had 2 brothers, and I got 2 sisters out of the ordeal. We're very, very close today. And actually, since my biological father's passed away, his wife treats me just like I'm hers. And it's amazing. And it's actually really scary how much I look just like him. I see pictures of him my age. I'm 41 now, but the pictures of him, we look so much alike, especially if I take and push my hair back and how he wore his hair up and everything. It's scary how much we look alike. So, yeah.
Is there any one memory or one characteristic you think that you have similar to him, or that you sort of carry in his honor, a thought about him that you carry in his honor?
You know, the memory I have, because he owned tobacco farms, and my mom worked and my brother worked on the tobacco farm with him. I remember him taking me to get candy at the store, you know, and everything. So he treated me like his when I was 5, 6 years old, and I had no clue. Everybody else around me knew. I had no clue until I was 25. But it was, so but I don't remember him as an adult. But as a child, I remember memories of him and his brother taking me to get candy and a Mountain Dew, you know, and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. I have that. Unfortunately, I didn't get, you know, to meet him as an adult. But again, I can't knock my father that raised me. He's still my dad, and both of them are actually passed away now. But he was still there for me. It's amazing. He even knew, and every baseball game and you know, he was there, baseball practice. He was retired. So he was able to go to all my sporting events and stuff. So cannot knock that by no means. But the nice thing about it, I gained some additional family members from it.
Oh, it's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Bring us up a little bit, Will. Now, tell us, you know, a little bit about your story. I know you know, we just looked at it briefly before we got on record here, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about your story. Bring us up to kind of today, please.
Yeah. So, you know, I left North Carolina. I wanted something bigger. And so I actually got, you know, after I left working in the mine and running industrial sized bulldozers, I went and I got a 2-year degree and a 4-year degree both. After that, I moved to Atlanta, started working, actually worked for Bell South before AT&T bought Bell South. And I was on the engineering team for Bell South, and then grew and worked for a large consulting firm, and then ended up being a VP of technology. In '07, when all the mortgages blew up, I already had a business plan, was already in my mind what I wanted to do. And so when the mortgage company closed April the 13th, it was Friday the 13th of '07, I started my company. And I started, at the time, it was Vapor Services, VAPOR, and that's a whole nother story that we'll get into here in a second. And I started that, based it on the cloud computing. Cloud computing was just becoming really hot at the time, and Vapor Cloud. And I thought I had a good idea until e-cigarettes and vaping came around, and that.
Oh yeah, okay.
So yeah, so I started that, and I grew from one client after the next. Hired my first 2 employees in '08, and really started growing. And God, I learned a lot. I mean, I was an engineer. I had a little bit of management experience of being a VP of technology, but running a company, it's a whole nother world to experience. You got insurance, E&O, general liability, speaking, getting in front of people and speaking. As a engineer, that's not normal to get out and actually be in front of people and be a salesperson. And the engineering hat in me says, it makes sense. Why don't you buy it? Versus the sales hat, you sort of have to massage that conversation. and so, you know, that's something you had to learn. I had to learn how to speak in public. I had to learn how to do accounting. I had to learn books and what was the P&L and balance sheet, and the things you think about in college and in high school that you go through, and you just do it to get through the grades. But you're learning a little bit, but you're not really paying attention, especially when it's not your field of expertise. And so, of course, everybody comes to me today and says, I should, you know, I want to start a business. What should I do? And the first thing I usually say is, don't do it. But I really don't mean that. I think people should start small businesses, but it's a gut check. You really have to think about it. And, you know, so in 2010, I actually lost 60% of my revenue. Was only 3 clients, but I lost 60% of my revenue. One went out of business, one got acquired by a bigger company, and one just left from nutrition. Well, you know, in 2010, I'm sitting there thinking, my God, what am I doing wrong? I'm struggling. I've had business for 2 years. I should be a millionaire by now. And that's the misconception people have, is they think they're going to be a millionaire because they started a business and they're on their own. They can do what they want. Not really, no. And so I had a lot of people telling me, you need to get your resume done. You can make a lot of money working for someone. You have less stress and everything. And I could have took that advice. In 2010, I could have threw up the hat and I could have put my resume out there, and I could be a CTO or CIO somewhere for a large company now. But it was in my heart, it was in my gut of what I wanted to do. And I struggled and I built it back up. And we're today a very striving organization. We changed the name to Vector Choice Technology Solutions. We have 4 locations as of this taping right now in May. But next month, we're actually opening our office in Flagstaff, Arizona. So we're going to have a West Coast office after next month. We've hired, in the whole coronavirus, we've hired 10 people in the past 3 months.
Nice.
So with even the struggles that everybody's going through, we're growing still. And I think, there's several reasons why we're continuing growing, but I obviously, if I look back, 5 years ago when I changed the company name, I only had 1 office 5 years ago. We changed the company name. I had a 5,000 square foot office here in Atlanta. I shut that down. The lease was up, and I went virtual 5 years ago, and everybody working from home, all my employees working from home. So when COVID-19 came around, this February, March, we didn't skip a beat. Everybody was panicking. How do I work from home and everything? And we've been doing it for 5 years. So it didn't change us a lot.
Well, that's really great. Can you tell me, what are some defining moments, sort of that you reimagined your vision or your direction? I mean, I get right away that you reimagined into, instead of office space, virtual working, solution. So just tell me a little bit of either ups and downs you've had, or a change of path, change of direction that made all the difference.
Sure. And I think there's several things that will happen to you and to a business owner during different times of a business that you'll say, you know what, that right there changed this year. That one thing this year changed my directory. And, I think meeting the right people at the right time. I got involved in an organization 5 years ago. And one of the things, it's a marketing organization for IT companies. And they're out of Nashville. And they came to me and said, Will, you need to change your name. And I'm blinded, right? Because it's my baby. You need to change your name. Why is that? Well, because vaping, e-cigarettes, and I knew it was there, but I wasn't paying attention. And so I think having that outside guidance from people helps you open your eyes a lot more. So I think that was a pivoting moment of joining that organization. I think a pivoting moment 2 years ago when I met an individual, and it got me out of my comfort zone, got me speaking, got me in front of people, expressing myself, using my hands, things that you don't think about. Sitting on TV. I mean, most people don't realize, some people don't never dream to be on TV. I don't think I've ever dreamed to be on TV, but I've been on TV, numerous times now. And you don't think about all the details that go in being on TV. Make sure you don't move the chair, make sure your hands, you don't have good boy hands, and stuff like that. It's things that you don't realize. And now I watch, and I'll sit there and watch CNN or Fox News or whatever, and I start judging the people that are doing the wrong things, where I'm like, you're on TV, you don't supposed to be doing that. So so that was a pivoting moment 2 years ago. I think at least one time a year, I feel like I have a moment that says, ooh, I'm going to take that next step. Or I'm going to change this. And I think it's constantly educating. I think as a business owner, you have to work on the business and not always in the business. You have to get the business to a size so you can start working on the business and not always in it. And at first, I was working as an engineer in the business and not stepping back and looking at the big picture. So definitely having the right people around you, the right guidance. I'm involved in Vistage. I'm involved in Convene. which is a Christian-based CEO roundtable group. So I'm involved in a lot of groups that I have peers that I can share information with. Like, right after our call tonight, I have a call at, this afternoon with competitors that I am in a peer group with that are competitors in Texas, one in Canada, one in New Jersey, that we share ideas together. And I think, don't be scared of your competition. Bring them close, because you're going to learn things from each other.
Amazing, outstanding. Tell me, Will, thank you for that. And tell me, like, what gets you emotional?
Well, you probably still that I'm an upbeat person and emotional. I think there's two extremes of emotion to me. I think the sad, family means a lot to me. It touches my heart. I'm a very tough guy, but when it comes to my kids, my family, I'm very sensitive from that standpoint. What gets me excited from a business is learning new things. Just going to a conference and taking away 2 or 3 good ideas and implementing that into the business.
So you get excited?
Oh God, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Wonderful. You've had some, really great, sort of ways that you've reinvented, reimagined yourself. Even down to your company name. Sort of the background you had with your father, your biological father, and the father that raised you. From tractor to from moving dirt to moving electrons. I mean, that's a big shift.
Big shift.
Yeah. Tell us more about tell us a little bit. And now you're speaking, and I definitely get that you're, you take on expanding yourself, challenging yourself, doing new things. I mean, how many people could say that they would, have conversations and discussions with their competitors? Like that's a pretty powerful thing.
Well, and it is. And I thought when I started my business, you're blinded, like the competition's bad. You want to beat the competition, yes, but getting to know your competition is so much better. It really is. It is knowing their ins and outs, and not really trying to get secretive information and stuff like that, but just really knowing them. And when you're going up against them, but they know your pros and cons as well. But their pros and cons as a business, and it does help you sell against them. But at the same time, I think it, and obviously a lot of the competition I work with is in other states where I'm not. But it is sharing that idea, where our prices are, you'll see so many prices so different in the technology world. And from state to state and city to city, and even inside of a city, even inside of Atlanta, pricing can be so different. And really educating, like, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? A conversation came up today with my team is on the discovery. Sometimes our discovery is be able to quote something is very time consuming. So my operations team is saying, hey, we need to start building for discovery. Well, that's a tough conversation where I live on both ends of the spectrum, where in operations, I understand the engineering side and where they're coming from. But on the sales side, how do you change that conversation from a sales conversation to now I'm going to charge you for designing this for you? And some industries is very black and white. That it's like an attorney, a divorce attorney. I was sharing with them the day. I said, if you go to a divorce attorney, your first consult, most of them charge for it, and they'll charge their regular fee, $300 or whatever they charge per hour. In IT, it's never been that way, but but pivoting, being the industry leader, and changing the way things are done, that's what we're trying to position ourselves as.
Yeah, so brilliant. I definitely get you create, and you pioneer and create new directions and so forth. Would you say that tell me 2 or 3 thoughts just to sort of summarize what your success formula is, including like how you, have, joy in your life and fulfillment.
Yeah, I think balance. I think a work life balance where you've got, I don't care if you're married or got kids or just got a dog, but getting away from work, because I found myself over the years, I was tying myself working 80, 90 hours a week, and I wasn't getting anywhere. Now I work probably 50 hours a week now, but I get so much further in that 50 because I take time to decompress. I don't do yoga or meditate, but I encourage people to do that if that's what they want to do. But my time is honestly going back to my roots. I'll go outside and get on the lawnmower and ride around and do yard work.
The
I,
tractor.
in my neighborhood, I can't drive a 100-ton bulldozer, but it's okay. So I decompress doing that type of stuff, remodeling the house, doing different stuff.
Hands-on stuff, like you're
The hands-on, because
using your hands.
I'm not having, you still got to think, but you don't think like you do with being a business owner or engineer. And so it helps me be innovative by stepping away from the business and freeing up time, spending time with family, laughing, carry on. We have campfires out back in the house and stuff like that. Is that work-life balance. Don't feel like that you start a business, you got to put a lot in the first several years, but then you've got to step back. Don't let it consume you. You got to step back. You got to have a life. You got get married, have kids, whatever you want to do. Have pets. I have them all. I have pets, kids, and wives. Wife, not wife. My wife will kill me. One wife. Just to clarify that. And so that having that is an out for me. And I think that is a very key to success. And also, if you have a spouse, girlfriend, wife, whatever, have one that will support you in what you want to do, because I think that has pushed me over the limit of being successful, is having someone there backing me and supporting me, for sure.
It's a big advantage. Yeah. Thank you. So we're starting to wrap up, but let's take a look at what does the future look like for you? What do you want to be known for in the future?
Yeah. So I am, my persona on TV is the cybersecurity expert. But I want someone, and even taking technology away, I want someone that is an innovator, a leader, a driver, a mover and shaker, someone that is taking things to the next level, pushing the limits. My wife will tell me I push the limits all the time, but pushing the limits of being the best that I can be, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's technology or speaking or whatever. Just get out there and get out of your own way.
And what would you want somebody to say about you when they're talking about you? Maybe a client or somebody 5 years in the future, yeah, Will Nobles, he is.
I think, and I'll probably use what people say about me now. I would say Will Nobles is dedicated. He's trustworthy. He's honest. He's a hard worker. But he will also draw the line on being very serious if it's a situation's out of line. I take things very serious when I need to, but at the same time, I'm a fun-loving, trustful person.
Thank you.
And I always try to do the right thing.
Wrapping up, any last words, and we're going to close down.
No, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a joy, telling the story, as many times as I've told it. I feel like I still learn something about yourself. And I think that's for everybody that's listening to this, is keep learning about yourself and your pros and cons, because even though the bad things that you think about yourself is a downer, use it for your advantage. Overcome that and use it for your advantage.
Will Nobles, Vector Choices, thank you very much for your time today and your contribution in this conversation.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
This is Carl Luke for Success Reimagined. Thank you, everybody.